2023 are Ironman World Championships, the men in France this year. So without further ado, let's kind of dive into what's going on. First thing to take note of, we're going to be doing this a little bit funky this time because the athlete guide isn't posted 4 weeks out of a world championship. So we are going to be doing things a little bit uniquely this time, but it's a month out, so we're going to dive into the schedule of events, which is posted. That training swim is available starting Saturday, September 2nd from 4 to 7. We also have the training swim check-in, or sorry, I misspoke, training swim check-in 4 to 7 on Saturday. Check-in is also available on that Sunday, September 3rd, 5:30 to 6:30 a.m. right before the 6:50 a.m. kickoff. After that, on Monday, September 4th, a couple of things are just kind of bouncing around. We have the Iron Kids registration info booth and the Hoka Fun Run. A quick note, if you do plan to do the Hoka Fun Run, make sure it is a fun one and not a super serious one. Very common for athletes to go to these World Championship events and totally floor it during this session. This should not be a super intense 5K. This should be a celebration of you and everybody there. If that's not your cup of tea, don't go. Tuesday, September 6th or September 5th, that is the Fun Run registration again. Wednesday, September 6th, we are checking in. Athlete check-in is available 9 to 6. Iron Kids, same thing, 8:30 to 9:30. Ironman Expo booth and the Fun Run registration again. We also have the VIP guest services available in the media center and also the Iron Kids race happening at 10 a.m. Thursday, athlete check-in 9 to 6 again. We also have our pre-race briefing in German. VIP guest services accreditation office is open. We also have a host of other things with the race briefing languages in Spanish, French, Japanese, Italian, and the Parade of Nations, which happens at 1:30, which ironically is during the Italian race briefing. Not cool. We also have a country group photo opportunity afterwards at the Parade of Nations. Parade of Nations, the real thing kind of kicks off at 3 to 4 p.m. And then Friday, then things start to get a little more serious here. It's a couple of days before the race. Things are going to get more tense all around the race venue. The kind of fun starts to wear off on Friday. Athlete check-in is available again 9 to 6 p.m. That is the last day to check in. We have the Fun Run starting at 9 a.m. and you can check in on that day 7 to 8:35 right before it if you do want to do that. Again, we also have the last race briefing, which is in English at 8 p.m., which is right after the welcome banquet. Saturday, September 9th, it is now serious business around the race venue area, and the mood will slightly change to that nervous energy that you know and love before Ironman events. We have our age group, professional, physically challenged, and hand cycle bike gear bag check-in starting at 11:30 a.m. and lasting until 6 p.m. That is the big thing that's happening on Saturday. Sunday race day transition opens at 5 a.m. Along with the Info Ironman booth. The World Championship Professional Men start at 6:50 with the age groupers starting 10 minutes after that. They also have listed wave starts. If my computer could actually highlight that, which clearly it can't. Wave starts, so I would expect it to happen just like it has in years past at Kona with those wave starts. Transition closes at 7:15 a.m. And the bike gear bag checkouts are available starting at 7 p.m. there. So that is the event schedule up there. So let's dive into some of the more nitty-gritty details on course. Probably the coolest feature here on the Ironman website now is a little button. If you scroll down on the courses page, we have a download GPX file option, which is great. You can download it, upload it to your watch, so you have all of this with you on race day. And it's directly from the race organizers, so you know, or at least it should be legit, which is great. It does change for the swim, bike, and run. So if you click that button, it does change. This is the bike one. This is the run one, which we'll talk about that in a second. But just wanted to make a quick note of that for everyone because that was a very, very cool feature that I was unaware of. So starting at race morning, this is our transition area, right? We are going to handle everything there on race morning. The morning clothes drop off is going to happen right at this area through here. We are going to have a start area that happens through here, and this is our course in this big N. Now this beach isn't quite a beach, which you will find out when you go to on race day. There are some rocks there, and it's mostly rocks if we're being honest with each other. They will have carpets laid down at the finish area. I doubt they will have it at the start area. Also, another thing for you to ask, since we do not have the athlete guide available to us a month out of the race, is if this is going to be an in-water start or not. Make sure you do ask that when you do check in, or ask it at one of the race briefings. I'm sure they will announce it, but just make sure you ask if you don't have an answer. So starting off, this race is going to play out a little bit differently for the professionals and age groupers. So professionals, when you do start this race, you're going to start out in a very fast wave. Make sure that you sample the swim entrance in the days leading up to this event here. It's going to be very beneficial for you to do so, and do not do it on race morning. So with that, professionals, this whole straightaway is going to be a blast. It's going to be fast. It's going to be fun. It's going to be very, very challenging. That's kind of what I'm getting at. So for you, it's going to be very hot this whole way out. I'm just not going to sugarcoat it for you, okay? Once you make this turn, these two turns are going to be tight, and the further you get out towards this first turn line, the turn buoy, excuse me, the more that elastic is going to start to stretch and snap. I highly encourage you to stay with a big pack as much as you can. I would actually not advocate for breaking away with just a small group or individual leader unless you just want to get the fastest swim time here because of the bike that's about to happen. Now, it's going to be crowded here. It's going to be crowded here. This is a right-hand turn, or at least it's depicted as that. So again, don't overthink it. It's a right-hand turn. Same with this one. This one's probably going to be a little bit tighter, but for the most part, I would make this turn, look for that first sighting buoy, and see if you can see these later on afterwards. After we make this turn here, then things are going to start to break up very substantially the further we get through here. If you are able to, you obviously want to be in that big pack, and everyone's going to want to be working together as long as possible here. You are going to have a couple of breakaway artists who are looking to break away, but if you see one or two, maybe three people going up the water here, I would actually let them go. You know, don't worry about it. They're going to pay the price for it later. They're not going to be able to stay away. Don't worry. On these buoys over here, right, this is going to be another tricky area for our professional men here. Two left-hand turns. It's going to be a direction where most athletes do not want to go, that left-hand side. So that's going to be a little bit tricky for most. Left-handed breathers rejoice. You can probably make up a spot or two very easily here after you make this this second left-hand turn. It is out 875 meters again. This is going to be the point of our race where the gaps have really solidified themselves, and you are just, trying to hang on to feet or trying to push the pace slightly if you want to break up that group or weed out some of the stronger bikers if possible. Once you make these two right-hand turns over here, your race isn't totally done, right? You have to pretty much get to this point where my mouse is for your swim to kind of be done, and you kind of shut things down a little bit. If there is a major group here, I would always look out for the newer athletes to make a break for it and just, use all their energy to help pull you along, and that is the swim for you. Age groupers, you're going to swim this very differently. Where the professionals were going out very hard, age groupers, since you are in those those waves, right, you are going to experience very similar things, and I highly encourage you to let other people do the work for you. It's going to be very easy, and there's going to be a lot of willing participants for sure, a lot of them. Let them do the work for you this whole way out. They're probably not going to feel the major ramifications of that until this second sighting buoy on the way back, okay? So let them do the work here, and after you start to make this or head to these turn buoys here, you are going to be able to leapfrog some of these athletes very, very easily because they've just gone out way too hard for them. Okay, when you do come back in, age groupers and professionals alike are going to start to battle the sun. Probably the sun might not be as high as you want it, but tinted goggles probably are going to be your friend on a course like this. And, depending on what the wind is doing, you could have a little side chop associated with the way out and back in. Just know that you're going to have the exact opposite things because you get to experience out and in, and you do that 2 times pretty much. So age groupers, once you get to this point here, this is halfway for you guys. At this point in time, you will really be in your groups, and again, I would honestly let the people who want to work do it for this stretch of the swim right here. You're not gonna, you're not gonna set the world on fire. If you do see a major group forming in front of you, you might want to leapfrog up to that because you're not gonna be able to catch what we call lap traffic at a course like this. It's going to be slightly different here because it is essentially a straight shot. You're just going to be catching other theoretical faster athletes. And depending on what wave you are, there's going to be different colors scattered about everywhere. So if you know you are in an age group, let's say you're in the 25 to 30 age group, right? And you have the 30 to 34s up the swim, or the 40 to 44s up the road there, and you know that they're faster than you and you're starting to catch up to some of those swimmers, it might be advantageous for you to do a surge or two in this area to just kind of get the rewards of that for the remainder of the swim. Right? You got to be careful once you get to this section right here because the swimmers who are a little bit stronger are going to want to push, right? And if you're just a kind of a neutral swimmer, you are going to have to weigh the pros and the cons of letting them go or just hanging on them. It's going to be very easy for athletes to get sucked into major games out here, so athletes, please, please, please be aware of your swim pace and how you should be swimming. It's okay to go a little bit faster in places, but not for the whole duration of the swim here. You want to be hanging on some feet, letting them do the work pretty much up until these 2 turn buoys down here. Once you make the final turn back into your finish line area, you're probably going to be battling the sun a little bit, right? And by this point, the sun's going to be up for you, so you won't have any issues sighting or any of that, right? And the main thing on this last stretch is just to get ready for the bike. So on this course, I would honestly take a 2-minute slower swim than let's call it a crushing swim. You just had an awesome time. I would take a slightly slower swim on this course than a slightly faster targeted swim. Not to say you're not going to go fast here, because you are, but you just need to have it in control, okay? And that's the swim, guys. After that, you hop out of the water. Make sure you are on the carpet. It's going to be a little bit weird, going to be a different thing. Don't rush the T1 here. No real need to, especially when you getting up to the transition area. Looks like it's going to be pretty straightforward. There's probably going to be some zigging and zagging through this area just to get everything set, right? But my predictions is there's going to be a change tent here, or 2, right? I don't know what's going to happen there. And then you're just going to get the bags, change area, and then you're going to hit your bikes, and out you go. Right? When you bike in, what's probably going to happen is the exact same thing. Get your bags, hit the tents, and then you are out the door. So let's go up to our bike course. And again, this is one of the best things I have ever seen, right? Download that GPX file, upload it, and you directly have it. This is the course blown up here. So this is our transition area down on the right-hand side over here. Let's draw a little arrow so everybody knows. Right there, okay? After that, you are going to scoot out of town this way before you head out onto the course. New feature here, it's not totally Ironman France. We do have a little out and back there. That is different, but it's very akin to that course, okay? With that, without further ado, let's dive into some deep data here. Let's get rid of this speed because everybody's going to be talking about the 8,400 feet of elevation gain here. All right, and I'll go back to that, right? So we do have, this is, let's call it 8,900 feet, right? So over here on these 30 miles, we have what is 4,900 feet of elevation gain. If I were to highlight these over here, so 50 plus this, we have about 6,300 feet of our predicted 8,900. Best Bike Split has it at 8,500, right? So a large portion of that elevation comes in two different places. When you do link up the Best Bike Split area, you are going to get some super high TSS values for a normal race here. So you can do things a little bit differently, and I highly encourage you to experiment around with that. Professionals, here's what is going to happen, and this is going to be a little bit longer explanation. Right? If you are a punchier athlete, right, and you get out of the swim in a bigger group, your goal during these first 25 miles is to play disruptor, right? You want to split the group up. You want chaos to happen back here, right? Then during this section of our bike here, you want to play the role of glorified teammate and pretend you have someone up the road. You want people to pull you. You want to get up to the top of this point that everybody's talking about with as little damage as possible. So if you do have a little bit of a gap, don't be surprised if the pure climbers, the lighter guys, start to catch up to you. That's probably what you're going to do anyways, right? If you can get up to the top here during, let's call this section the plateau section, right? And we can even highlight a little bit further onto this downhill section here. Your goal, again, is to recover from that effort, which was probably way too hard for you on the big uphill and too long for you. You're going to be needing to get a ton of fuel in. There are three distinct areas that I haven't seen in too many other races. The lighter star is a full aid station, that first one, and we have one here, full aid station here. We also have personal needs, which is right here, and then after that, a fluid only station, which is right there. All of these are unmissable, right? You have to hit all of these aid stations to have success on race day, whether you are a super hill climber or not, right? But let's go back to that punchier athlete. Your job here is to A, catch up, but B, also be shoving food in your body because of those higher TSS values and just fatigue that we are going to accumulate in this race. Your job is to get everything back to good as much as possible. You're naturally going to be faster on these sections here. They are twisting and turning, right? But your job is to be smooth. Your job is to just keep fueling at a ridiculous rate and just get your body ready to work again while also starting to close the gap a bit on some of those pure climbers. Afterwards, we do have our second big hill climb out on course, and we're actually going to highlight up until this point right through here. Again, there's an aid station in there. Your role as a punchier athlete, someone who's not designed for this course, you cannot miss that aid station. Absolutely not. You're going to have to be throwing the food into you, right? And your job is just going to have to be to get up there. It's not going to be fun for you. You're going to go out of your limit, right? And then on the remaining downward sections, right, you have to do two things: recover, and you also have to get the fuel back up while getting caught back up to the group. So you will probably have to be taking a couple more risks, and that is just going to be who it is for you. So once we get to the flatter part over here, you should have no problem kind of sticking with the group or putting down some power because that's kind of your area there. It's not going to be your normal power because you're going to have a lot of stuff taken out of you, but it is what it is. Hill climbers. Your job is going to be kind of the exact opposite. During this point in time, your role is to hang on. It's not going to be to go away because during this section, right, this is going to be your bread and butter section. And it's going to be a little annoying for you. I know you can go. I know you want to go, but honestly, you should only go with a group at this point in time because you are unable to put down the punchier numbers that some of those other athletes have during this section. So if you are able to kind of go away with a hill climbing group, let's call it that, that would be your perfect scenario, 3 to 5 other riders, and you can do that. You can have the affordability on a course like this to make that happen, right? During this section right through here, this is one of your last sections to kind of put a stamp on the course for you. Being a hill climber, you might be a good descender, and that is another hint, hint, nudge, nudge in your direction. But again, you don't want to come all the way down to this point in time, just you, because you do have about 10 miles left of work to go. Age groupers, here's how this race is going to play out for you. During this first section right through here, your job is to get your legs ready to rock and roll, especially during here. Very common at these World Championship events for athletes to really just floor it out of the gate. Please, please, please don't do that. Get your legs ready to rock and roll. Get your heart rate settled. Get your legs ready to go. Make sure you're fueling. And this is probably another instance where you might want to have a food bottle in your transition bag so you can have that after your swim because you're going to need the extra fuel today. After you get to this point in time, the course kind of starts for you there. After that, you just want to kind of get up this one. You're not going to really push the pace too much at all, right? We do have a little bit of a downhill before the main hill that everyone is talking about starts. Your job is to get up this hill in control. If you did want to go a little bit harder here, I would save it for the punchier sections. You're going to naturally have to go a little bit harder than all of these power predictors kind of put out for you. But if you did want to go a little bit harder, again, like I talked about for the punchier athlete, all of these aid stations are unmissable for you. You cannot afford to miss it or skip it, so make sure you are aware of what's happening. Slow down if you have to. When you are in these aid station areas, because they are where they are, don't be surprised if you have athletes who are really weaving, trying to get back on their bike if they have totally stopped, and it's just going to be a mess in those areas. So make sure you are on your P's and Q's when you are going through the transition areas, okay? Afterwards, because you have gone a little bit harder, more than likely during this climb right here, just because it's really unavoidable, this section, we're going to call this a little plateau section here. This plateau section is going to be an opportunity for you to be like those punchier professionals that we talked about, okay? Your main goal is to get food in, recover, and get your speed back up at a reasonable rate. But the main goal is to actively fuel your body. Most athletes out here are going to be going a little bit slower than what they have normally gone to get here, right? And that's going to kind of eat at them. During this section, you have to be very wary of that. Realize that most athletes' times out here are going to be slower. There's still an opportunity to be very quick, but they are going to be a little bit slower just because we have that 8,500 feet of elevation to climb, right? Say you qualified at Maryland, very two opposite courses, right? It's just you can't really compare the two. So because of that, during that plateau section, your job is to kind of get things under control. When you're going through these sections here, I mean, and that really starts, this plateau here, it really starts in this area, and you can see that the road really winds. And if you go through this area over here, right, there's never really a straight line for very long, right? There's always a zig or a zag or a dip or like a left or right shimmy or shake. So I envision that there are going to be a couple of people who do go down just because they're not used to the riding style back here. It's narrow at some points. It's European riding. You know, it's not anywhere else in the world, right? It's fun, but you always have to be mentally aware of what's happening. If you do want to pass someone, make sure it is safe to pass someone there, and just really, really watch out for other people and turns and twists. Don't be shocked. If something like that does happen to you on race day, it's going to happen to everyone. They're going to just kind of go and turn their brain off for a second, and there's going to be a little turn, a little dip, and you could find yourself in some trouble, or if you're trying to pass someone else, opening yourself up to some trouble if you're not careful there. But back to the lecture at hand here. This is our downhill area where a lot of athletes will really want to just absolutely punish. And that's coming in this section right through here. And again, remember, there are a lot of shimmies, a lot of shakes. There are some not roundabouts. There are some really sharp turns there that you just have to be careful with. So just make sure you are having a heads-up attitude during this section. This section should not be a total bomb fest right here. You can go fast, make sure it's in control, because immediately after you have the last real work of the day here before it starts to undulate down. If we go to our other section right here, you can see that it looks pretty tame right in there, but if we do, and you can do this yourself, right, you can highlight anywhere. It goes up and down pretty regularly, so it's not just a steady downhill that you see on the course map from Ironman. So there is still some climbing left to be had out there, but going back to our best bike split here, thing that we haven't talked about is weather. Right, weather will play a factor in here when we start. The winds are projected to be about 10 and a half miles an hour, but it could be anything. We're a month away, right? I would expect it to be a little bit more than this in places, especially when you get closer to the coast, right? So depending on what that weather does as we get closer and closer to the end here on our flatter section, right, we are probably going to have a headwind, probably going to have a crosswind. That is usually the case, right? And that's really the bike course. Something that I looked at when I was going on our power plan adjustments here is there's a couple obvious places where you can gain a ton of time here. And again, first one that caught my eye was this one right here. Again, it is a 4.5-minute segment. You only save 14 seconds. Take a look at this one right here. 51 seconds and you gain 3.5 seconds right here. There is a ton of ticky-tacky areas where you can pull a lot of time back very easily here. And it's no surprise that a lot of this comes in our middle section here and also on the hills, which are right here and right here. A ton of them happen right there. You have to be careful though, because like this one, you're getting a 17, 18-second watt savings or time savings here, but it's going to cost you 6.5 minutes. So again, I would be very careful with where you do something like this. Okay, I would almost always look for these smaller areas to get. 0.16 of a second. You're doing that over 50 seconds, and you can even highlight something like this and you can see it a lot more clearly what is happening, right? Weight savings, let's drop this down. Let's remove our power increases and let's go to our weight decreases. So say this athlete dropped 3 pounds on a course like this, right? We are gaining, or we're essentially going 3 minutes and 16 seconds faster, right? But our 316 savings does come at a couple of costs, but it does far outweigh, right? And that is almost always on some of the downhills and faster areas, right? If you blow that out, you can see it a lot clearer, and you can do that kind of on your own time there. Improving our drag, right? Let's say we reduce this down a little bit more, and couple of quick savings here have a massive impact on this, right? Massive impact. I know it's hard to improve that ladder. You got where you got on purpose, no accident there, so improving that is usually a pretty big ask over a course like this. But weight is usually an easier one. So that is our bike course in a nutshell, right? If I were you guys, I really wouldn't push it super aggressively up this hill right here. I just wouldn't, right? I would actually turn my attention to something like this, right? And also, believe it or not, this downhill all the way back in, because this happens at, let's call it 82 miles, right? So there is still a huge amount of time left to put a stamp on this course, and it's a big opportunity there. So if you use this opportunity just to coast down, just to kind of get through, as opposed to actually riding this last section, you can have significant impacts on your day. So the run course. Let's go to our run course here where it is pretty flat. It's pretty flat. We have a total elevation gain of 100 meters here. If we go to our GPX file that Ironman has provided, we have about 1,000 feet of elevation gain, and the reason that this is happening is it's not Ironman's fault, it's actually the GPX's fault, right? If you look at this course, right, and I'm just scrolling over this steadily, that dot looks like it's jumping, right? And because of that, it's just the satellite. There's just not enough data from this point right here, so it's jumping, right? So that's not the real elevation. But it's still pretty flat no matter how you slice it, right? So the run is going to be largely dictated by what happened on the bike. And normally at this point in the video, I get rid of the bike and I forget about it after this. But we are actually going to go back to the bike, right? Because that last section that I talked about right through here, if you use this opportunity to just coast down, right, your legs are not going to be super happy. Unless you have totally floored it up until that 80-mile mark, which honestly it will be possible and it is totally doable, right? And you are going to need a ton of recovery time, but after you get to about that 101, 102 mile marker, you do have to pedal to get back home, right? So that is another big reason why I would really this hill you can kind of overdo in the grand scheme of things, but this one you just have to be very aware of what's happening because you have all that extra fatigue in your legs from the mountain, right? And probably getting across the plateau here, you've probably had a couple of scares with other people, a couple of tight turns, corners, roads, all that good stuff. Make sure you preview the course that your legs probably aren't going to feel great by the time you get out onto the run. When we do get out onto the run, this is going to be an exercise in body management here. Personal needs station is happening right through here on this little out and back area. If it's like other courses, you can access that on any loop you want to and more than once, which would be another huge boost to you. You're going to have athletes who are grabbing the Red Bull and all of that right from the get-go. I would avoid that until at least the second lap. I really would push that off as long as possible. But in terms of everything else, right, we have an aid station here and an aid station here. This is our a full aid station right through here, and so should this one. It's a little bit wonky, right? Usually there are some things around the personal needs area. That is our last big question to ask, right? What is happening at this personal needs area? Is it set up like an aid station? Is it set up just like a personal needs area and nothing else? If you do have another aid station in there, I would be utilizing all of these, right? As many as you can. You want to cool yourself off as much as possible. If it is a cooler day or a rainier day, right, you might need to do the opposite. So if that's the case, you do have the green light to open things up within the first half a mile, right? But if it is a normal temperature day out there and you're heating up, right? You need to start off slow. You need to cool yourself off. Don't be afraid. Don't get shy at those aid stations, right? Get gross, cool yourself off, take care of yourself. Be very aware of what's happening. We're going to go back to the bike course, believe it or not, again, because we have two aid stations that happen at mile 90 and then at mile, let's call it 105, right? These are unmissable. You cannot miss those. Absolutely not. No excuse for missing these things. They are full aid stations, right? So if you have overheated yourself on this last big hill, slow down, stop if you need to, get an extra bottle, pour it over yourself, cool yourself off. The main game as we get down here is to cool your core body temperature off as much as possible. Obviously, you don't want to get too cool out there, but if you have overheated yourself, you need to allow that body to recover a little bit, and the only area you're really going to be able to do that is right through here. Right? You're still going to be working again, but this is a huge opportunity to cool down, and instead of bombing, okay, do not bomb that hill. That is another big secret of this course. once we do get out onto the run, it's pretty straightforward. This is our start finish area. This is the transition right through here. So you are going to go out there and go right back out the same side you did on the bike, which is really cool. And then you go out, and there is a little out and back section. You will peel off to the right and make a left U-turn, where you will do another couple of tight right-handers after that to get back out on the main run course. Be careful of other people. Watch out for other spectators all over the course here. It's going to be an open run, which means there's not going to be a lot of shade. Yeah, there are a couple of palm trees out there, a couple of opportunities for some quick respite, but for the most part, you are going to be unable to hide from the elements out there, whether it's cold, whether it's hot, windy, rainy, whatever the case may be. You are going to experience those elements to the fullest extent out there. If it is a hot day, maintain that lower body temperature as long as possible. So that should be another step throughout the aid station process. I envision this same way I'm envisioning the bike. I would expect some slightly slower times, but you never know. If you have paced it really well on the bike, you will have the opportunity to put it down here. Successful athletes are going to arrive at Transition 2 ready to rock and roll. If you're kind of in the hurt locker, be prepared to get passed a lot by runners here. Okay, a stronger runner, I would again not be afraid to give away 5, 10, even 15 minutes on the bike for age groupers. Okay, don't worry about that, because you are going to be seeing bonks of epic proportions out there on race day. So leave the egos aside, race your race, and don't get caught up in all the games out there. The games are going to happen big time on the swim, big time on the bike for at least the first half, and probably until mile 80, if I'm being honest, right? Because most people can get through that amount of miles with disregard to their power. But after that, it becomes very serious business after that. So don't be afraid to let some of those athletes go, age groupers, because you will run them down and mow them down on the run, okay? I wish everyone the best of luck out there. I wish you guys the best of luck. I can't be there this year, but I want you to know I'll be rooting and cheering you on. If you want an individual race breakdown, make sure you reach out to me, and I will be happy to do it for you. So good luck, everybody.